Greetings, salutations, respect, and love. I am Scott, and you're in the Prog Corner where today I'm going to take another bite at the apple, man. Last week we did prog, not prog, post-punk bands that had a lot of prog in their DNA. Well, today I'm doing new wave bands that every prog rock fan should have at least a little bit of an affinity for because they have progressive elements in their sound on one level or another. And, you know, since we did post-punk last time, I'm going to put at the end of this video a link to that where you can play the drinking game, see how many times Scott says post-rock instead of post-punk. But this one I'm going to try to not make too many mistakes. In that last episode, we covered bands like XTC, Talking Heads, Magazine, Talk, The Strangers, Wire, Ultravox, Television, and The Cure. So they're not going to be on this one, even though there's plenty of overlap between post-punk and new wave. Makes sense since new wave came out after punk, you know, so sometimes they're almost the same term, but I don't care. I'm having a lot of fun doing these types of videos, so whatever. The Cardiacs are not included, man. Their first album came out in 1988, so we're going to have to deal with Cardiacs in our own way. And what is this access between new wave and prog? The first thing that comes to mind are the keyboards that were so dominant in the 80s, but some of the people that crossed over, right? You had Nick Beggs, a bass player who was with Kajagoogoo. He's now all over the place. He's just a prog luminary. How about the Buggles joining Yes back in 1980 for drama? You know, Adrian Belew had been working with Talking Heads and Tom Tom Club before he got over to King Crimson. How about Pat Mastelotto from Mr. played with XTC. Yeah, ended up in King Crimson. Frosty Beetle was in the Cutting Crew. I just died in your arms tonight. He ended up in Life Signs. How about Mark King from Level 42? He ended up being a progger, joining forces with Stuart Copeland and Adrian Belew in that Gizmodrome band. But there's a bunch of bands that we're not going to talk about today because I'm going to limit it to 12. So here are the ones that I thought about and I decided I didn't really want to talk about today, but are just awesome, and prog rock fans would probably like all of these bands. So real quick, I'm just going to rip through some bands that I love, but I decided to leave off the list for one reason or another. How about Echo and the Bunnymen, the Teardrop Explodes, the Soft Boys, Swell Maps, the Feelies. Oh, I love the Feelies. Flock of Seagulls. Man, you know, if Signals took their cues from the Police, then Grace Under Pressure to me sounds like the Flock of Seagulls. Very underrated. How about Adam and the Ants, man? Very progressive in the Burundi rhythms and whatnot that were going on there. Au Pairs, fantastic band. Sad Lovers and Giants. The Fall, can we consider them new wave? Yeah, probably more post-punk, whatever. A Certain Ratio. This Heat. Big Country. Wang Chung. Jack Hughes is a big prog guy now. Icicle Works. Joy Division. Ice House, the Psychedelic Furs, The Fix, great band, very progressive new wave. Susie and the Banshees, Gary Newman, Oingo Boingo, Thomas Dolby, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Aztec Camera, and the last one that probably should be on this list, but I'm not going to include them, is The Church. And I'm not including them because I think I'm just going to do a ranking the episodes on The Church. They're a great band and they deserve a little more recognition, so I think I'll do that sometime in 2024. But here we go, man. Here are the 12 new wave bands that dip their toe in progressive sounds. At number 12, we're going to LA and Missing Persons. Oh, man, when your drummer is Terry Bozzio, you're probably going to be on this list. Terry met his future wife, Dale, when he was with the Zappa band. I guess she was a Playboy bunny. They were joined by Warren Cucurulo, who later on joined Duran Duran. And their first album was Spring Session M, which is really, really good. Walking in LA and Destination Unknown, great tracks. Their second album, Rhyme and Reason, was okay. And then by 1986, their third album, Color in Your Life, was just terrible. And that was about the end of Missing Persons for me at number 11. How about a band taking their cues straight from Roxy Music? It's Duran Duran. your ability to enjoy Duran Duran, especially their early stuff, is probably in direct relationship to how much you enjoy Roxy Music and any of that new romantic stuff that was happening then. The early records had the classic five-piece lineup of Simon Le Bon on vocals, Andy Taylor on guitar. He would leave after like 4 albums. John Taylor, Roger Taylor, he also would leave. There were 3 Taylors in the band, and Nick Rose on keyboards. Their first album came out in 1981. I absolutely love it. Their second album, Rio, was amazing. It had Hungry Like the Wolf on it. In 1983, Seven in the Ragged Tiger. And then by 1986, they put out Notorious. But they weren't done yet, man. That Ordinary Life song was on the horizon. That came out like in 1990. I love Duran Duran. Very underrated. Very cool. At number 10, how about a band called Simple Minds, the Scottish band led by Jim Kerr, ex-husband of Chrissie Hynde. Most people know this band because of The Breakfast Club and Don't You Forget About Me. Well, I got news to tell you, boys and girls. That was David Foster, so that doesn't count. I'm talking about old Simple Minds, man. Their first album, Life in a Day, 1979. So good. Their second album, also from 1979, Reel to Reel Cacophony. Fantastic. 1981, Sons and Fascination. Sisters, Feelings Call. A double album that was good. 1982. Things started changing with New Gold Dreamin' by 1984, Sparkle in the Rain. They weren't the same band I remembered, but man, early Simple Minds, so cool. Indebted a little bit to krautrock and maybe some of the ambient stuff that was going around. Very creative, very innovative, very cool band. At number 9, a band I absolutely love, probably the most obscure band on this list, but I could not leave them off because I just adore the Monochrome Set. Led by Bid, yeah, that's what he called himself, Bid, Lester Squares, and Andy Warren. They were formed in London in 1978, and in 1980 they dropped 2 absolute stone-cold masterpieces in Strange Boutique and Love Zombies. In 1982 they dropped Eligible Bachelors, which was really, really good. And Johnny Marr from the Smiths has been quoted as saying that if it weren't for the Monochrome Set, the Smiths would have never happened. And for that reason alone, I'm glad I put them on the list at number 8. It's the Human League. Don't you want me, baby? Well, once again, dig a little bit underneath the surface and you'll find that before, they put out Dare in 1981, they put out an incredible EP called The Dignity of Labor, which was originally just on a flexi disc. Unbelievably good. Their first album, Reproduction, I absolutely love it. Second album, Travelogue, a year later in 1980, just amazing. Any of that early Human League stuff is just great. Phil Oakley, Ian Marsh, and Martin Ware. The 2 other guys, that Ian Marsh and Martin Ware, would leave the band and form Heaven 17. Another good band I really like. At number 7, let's go to Auckland, New Zealand, and Split Ends. Yeah, maybe a little bit early. Probably shouldn't be on this list. Forming in 1972 and putting out their first album, Mental Notes, in 75. Very progressive, man. And their second album, Second Thoughts, from 76, also progressive. Dysrhythmia from 77, not as good, but by the time 1979 rolls around, Frenzy, they're starting to sound a little more commercial, and by 1980 with True Colors, they had gone all the way down that path, but they remained really, really good. Any of those first 5 Split Ends albums are really, really good. Originally, it was Tim Finn and Phil Judd, and then I guess Phil left, and Neil Finn joined the band. I think that's Tim's brother, and you know what happened afterwards. They formed Crowded House, and things got super commercial, man, but those early Split Ends albums are just phenomenal. At number 6, it's Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, Andy McCluskey and Paul Humphreys. Oh, man, I love OMD. I just love this band so much. Their first 4 albums are just so good. I love the keyboard patches. I love the songwriting. The debut album came out in 1980, just so good. Organization also came out in 1980. The third album, which I'm spotlighting, Architecture and Morality, from 1981, with the great track Joan of Arc. And then their 4th album, Dazzle Ships, from 83, also just absolutely amazing. OMD Still around, man. They just dropped their 14th album last year, and it's good, man. OMD at number 6. Here we go. It's the top 5, and at number 5, it's the Cars. Oh, yeah, the Cars, they're not progressive. Well, tell that to Greg Hawkes, man. He wrote a song for Happy the Man, appeared on their second album, Crafty Hands. That alone's good enough for inclusion. But if you listen to, a lot of the stuff Greg Hawkes is playing on guitar, on keyboards, and Elliot Easton on guitar, this was a band that had listened to a lot of really good music. It was obvious. I absolutely adore their first 3 albums, man. The Cars in 1978. Candio in 1979 and Panorama in 1980. They could do no wrong. I absolutely adore it. And then the next 3 albums, they progressively got worse and worse with Shake It Up in 81, Heartbeat City in 84 with all the hits, Drive and all that terrible stuff, Magic, I hated it. And then Door to Door was even worse in 87, and then they broke up. I guess they came back as the New Cars and put out another record. I don't know, man, but those first 3 Cars albums, absolutely stellar at number 4. If Brian Eno produced your first album, there's a real good chance I'm going to take a look-see at this band. And absolutely, Ohio boys. It's Devo, man, from Akron, Ohio. The Mothers, Mark and Bob Mothersbaugh with Bob and Gerald Casale, and then Alan Myers. That was the original 5-piece lineup. 3 of them are still in the band and they're still touring, but I have Devo on this list very specifically. Their first 3 albums are absolutely incredible. Question, are we not men? Answer, we are Devo from 1978, produced by Brian Eno. Bowie discovered them. He wanted to produce their debut album, but he was a little busy, so he got his good buddy Eno on board. 1979, Ken Scott produced the fantastic Duty Now for the Future, probably my favorite Devo album. And then in 1980, Freedom of Choice came out. Don't be fooled by the fact that Whip It is on here. The rest of this album is absolutely fantastic. And I even like Whip It. It was a good hit. It sounded good on the radio in 1980. I'm not going to lie. At number 3, one of my personal favorite musicians of all time, man. It's Joe Jackson. What a genius, man. I remember as a kid, teenager growing up, everybody was talking about Joe Jackson as like a poor man's Elvis Costello and all this and that. I don't know, man. I always preferred Joe Jackson over Elvis Costello, and a big reason why, the bass playing of Graham Maybe. Oh, so good, man. 1979, Joe Jackson dropped 2 albums, and I think they're both masterpieces. The debut Looks Sharp and I'm the Man. Then in 1980, he does a weird album called Beat Crazy with a lot of like reggae and ska stuff. And he follows that up in 89 with something called Jump and Jive, which was all like big band stuff. Then he gets into 1982 with Day and Night, 1984 Body and Soul, where he incorporates a little more new wave and a little bit more R&B at the same time. I don't know how you do that. He pulled it off. And then in 1986, another masterpiece, the double album Big World. I love Joe Jackson. Is he prog? Of course not. But he is in that access point where there's plenty of progressive stuff in his music. He's amazing. He's still going strong. He's still touring. He's still recording. Love Joe Jackson, man. At number 2, it's the Police. Oh, yeah, man. If the Professor Neil Peart gave Stuart Copeland props for being one of the most influential drummers on his style, that's good enough for me, man. That's good enough for them being here. But how about, Stuart Copeland was married to Sonia Christina. He was in Curved Air. That's pretty proggy right there. Or Andy Summers playing with Robert Fripp. Did a couple albums with him. Oh, he was also in Soft Machine. Yeah, there's plenty of prog connections here. And if you look at Sting's solo albums, all the Wynton Marsalis stuff. Was it Wynton or Brand? I don't. One of the Marsalis guys was always playing with Sting in his solo albums, gave it kind of a jazzy feel. So, the Police were very, very progressive. Were they prog? Of course they weren't prog. But 1978's Outlandos do Amor, masterpiece. 1979, Regata de Blanc, masterpiece. 1980's Zenyatta Mandata, masterpiece. 1981, Ghost in the Machine, masterpiece. And their 5th and final album, 1983, Synchronicity, guess what? Masterpiece. They're 5 out of 5. All 5 Police albums are amazing. But I got one new wave band that I think every prog rock fan needs to listen to. They probably already are, so I'm preaching to the choir here, but at number 1, I've got Tears for Fears. Hey, if Nick DiVirgilio was your touring drummer, there again, a real good chance prog rockers might have something to listen to in this band's music. Absolutely. Kurt Smith, Roland Orzabal, 1983, The Hurting, my favorite album from them. Just amazing. But 1985, Songs from the Big Chair with all the hits, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, and Shout, Let It All Out, all that stuff. 1989, they probably waited too long to drop their third album, but it's a masterpiece, Seeds of Love. And then they did 2 albums without Kurt Smith that I don't really count as Tears for Fears albums, but they're back in a big way. 2004, they put out a great album, and then 2022, The Tipping Point, really, really good. Welcome back, Tears for Fears, and the upper tier of progressive pop music, I guess you might call it, but whatever. I love them. They're just amazing. Tomorrow on the channel, boys and girls, what am I doing? Well, I'm still deciding. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do yet. We'll do something fun, but I can guarantee you one thing that's on the horizon. I will be doing a review of the new album by the Spanish group Regna. The album is called Cinema. It did come out in November last year, so yeah, I'm a little late on it. But man, if you like Wobbler, you're going to love this band Regna, and I can't wait to talk to you guys about it. So maybe we'll do that tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see how I feel. I got plenty other stuff in the works if I feel I want to go another direction. You know how I do. Anyway, peace in the Middle East. I love you guys. Yeah, free Tibet. And God save the king. Save King Chucky. Save King Charles III. That sucker needs your saving right now. Yes, he does. That son of a gun could use your saving. Things aren't going so good in the UK, King Chucky. Do something about it. Anyway, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.